Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us on our second instructional video for learning the basic important elements of finance that can lead us to financial freedom and true wealth. In the last video, we talked about some of the behaviors that control our responses to money and how understanding those things about ourselves can be very important for us to reinforce the kinds of things that will help us be successful in managing our finances. We also spoke about the difference between being rich and being wealthy. Our goal is true wealth. This is a review of what that means. You enjoy what you do. You work because you want to, not because you have to. Your assets work for you, not you for them. You have time and resources to explore your hobbies. You have time for your family. You can retire when you want to, not when you have to. And you're able to get back. Today and from here out, we will use the milestones on this list to dive a little deeper into each topic. The topic today is about spending behaviors, and we'll talk about the first two milestones on this list: earning more than we spend, or maybe better stated, spend less than we earn, and spend on what we value. Remember that the difference between being rich and being wealthy is what you decide to do with your discretionary income, the income that is not required just to fulfill your basic living expenses. Once finished with residency, virtually all doctors have discretionary income, and sometimes it's a very sizable amount. If you want to be rich, your choice is to spend all that extra income on the things that you want, be it new cars, a big house, frequent expensive vacations, country clubs, jewelry. The list can be as long as you can dream about stuff to buy. This is all the stuff that everyone gets to see that you have. But remember what the problem is. The problem is that sustaining that lifestyle requires that you continue to bring in a high income. If you don't, it's all going to catch up to you, especially if you've used leverage by borrowing money to obtain any of those items, assuming that it would be easy to cover the loan payments. If your income dries up for some reason, it can lead very quickly to bankruptcy and losing it all. In contrast, true wealth is what others don't see. It's the money that you had that you could have spent, but chose to save or invest instead. If you can develop that discipline early in your career, it will pay huge dividends later and will still allow you to get all that stuff at some point if you want it, but doesn't tie your hands up to your income just to maintain your lifestyle. True wealth gives you choices and sustained freedom from serious financial concerns. What is the key to true wealth? Saving. Think of it as paying yourself first. In 2024, the average credit card debt for a U.S. household is just over $6,000. And credit cards charge an average 22% interest, with many cards charging up to 30%. Why are so many people in trouble with credit cards? Unfortunately, for a lot of people, they carry a balance on a card because they make just enough money to pay for their basic survival needs. And there's no cushion when life's emergencies arise, even when relatively small. But for most, it's a spending problem. It is a buy now, pay later mentality. When extra money comes in, they spend it on something that catches their eye. Then, when a true emergency hits that requires immediate attention, they're forced to use a credit card to pay for it. With such high interest rates, you end up paying way more than the cost of whatever you bought with that card. If you want to accumulate wealth, you have to get out of this trap. If you find yourself in this position, we'll talk about more what to do about it in an upcoming lecture. Today's topic, though, is more about how to avoid the situation in the first place. How do you prevent the need to use credit cards when life presents a bump in the road? An emergency savings fund. This should be your first savings priority. If you have money that is immediately accessible when you need it, you'll never have to use a credit card and carry a balance at those exorbitant rates. Also, think about what would happen if you got sick and have to miss work, or if you lose your job, or your spouse loses their job. Suddenly, you might find yourself in a situation where you went from having a comfortable amount of money coming in every month to having to scrape by. What if it takes you several months to recover your health or to find a new job? These things happen all the time and can lead to severe financial distress and may be completely unpredictable. An emergency fund helps you prepare in advance for this and will help you get through it without taking as huge a financial hit. It's suggested that if you're a single income family, you have at least enough accessible money to pay for at least 6 months of all living expenses. If you're a dual income family, the minimum is 3 months. It might take you some time to build up to that, but start somewhere. Even having an extra month of expenses saved will help you cover the most common emergencies. Start there and then keep adding to it slowly until you reach your target. This money should not be invested in stocks or bonds or real estate. It should be in cash, meaning a protected savings account in an FDIC-insured bank or credit union. It needs to be accessible for when you might need it with no notice. You don't want to risk losing any of that money, which is possible with investments in the short term. Preferably put it in a high-yield savings account. In 2024, you can earn over 5% interest in some of these accounts. That's a great return for a safe place to put your money. Some people think the next topic is a dirty word, budgeting. They think that that is for poor people who only have enough money to scrape by. That's absolutely not the case. Budgeting is a critical skill for anyone who wishes to achieve financial independence. In the simplest terms, it just means knowing what is coming in and what is going out, and then making a plan for that in advance. It involves setting goals and priorities. A lot of people don't really want to know the details of their spending. Maybe they're afraid to know how much money they spend on things that maybe they don't really need. Well, sometimes that is an uncomfortable process. The truth can be hard. But if you don't know how you're spending your money, it's showing a lack of respect for that income. And if you don't respect it, you'll likely lose it. That goes back to our behavioral finance topic. Understanding your cash flow and creating a budget simply helps you spend money on what you value and not letting it go to waste. As a financial planner or a financial coach, it's not our job to tell you what you should value. It's up to you to decide what brings you happiness and makes your life more fulfilled. You should spend your money on things like that. What budgeting can help you do is to show you all the money that you are spending on things that you don't really value, but are doing it out of habit or convenience. You don't even realize that you're spending it. Think of all the streaming apps that you might be paying a monthly subscription for. Yes, it's only $10 a month, but do you really need 7 or 8 different services? Do you watch that much TV? What about your daily Starbucks habit? Do you realize how much you could save if you made your own coffee at home? Is it really important to you to eat lunch out every workday? Could you bring a sack lunch instead? Do you need a whole bucket of popcorn when you go to a movie, or is a smaller size sufficient? These are just examples of ways that you could easily save money and probably not dramatically alter your lifestyle. There are many similar examples. If you save and invest that $10 every month in an S&P 500 index fund and it earned an average of 9%, in 30 years, that'd be worth $18,307. If it's $100 every month, $183,074. Do it for 40 years, now it's $468,132. Not bad for cutting out some things that you might not even really miss. For you to find areas where you could save, you first have to know what you are spending. That takes a little bit of work on your part, but there are ways to make it easy. One is to not use cash to buy stuff, but use a debit card or a credit card, but pay it off. The monthly statements will give you a built-in record of your spending. Go back and review those statements and see where your money's going. Another way is to use a budgeting app. One I like is called Monarch Money. On this and similar apps, you can link and aggregate your accounts, and it will show you what you're spending and even create a budget for you almost automatically. Again, the only way to gain control over your money inflow and outflow is to know what it is. Only you can do that. It's well worth the time. So by now, the message should be pretty clear. If you want to be wealthy, you have to be a saver. Morgan Housel said it well. Building wealth has little to do with your income or investment returns and lots to do with your savings rate. How much should I save? Well, how quickly do you want to achieve true wealth? If the answer is as soon as possible, then the answer to the savings question is as much as possible. The more the merrier. Remember that for discretionary income, the amount that you can save is entirely up to you. It just depends on how disciplined you want to be about defining what is a want and what is a need. It's human nature that the more money we have, the more of our wants become needs. I'm not telling you to be miserly and to not enjoy your life or the fruits of your hard-earned labor. What I am suggesting is that the more you save and the earlier you invest it, the more that you'll have down the road and the faster you reach financial freedom. Also, remember to set goals. When you decide on what you want and when you need it, create a savings plan for that goal and start putting away the money so that you can pay for it in cash. Obviously, there are some big purchases that it makes sense to finance, like a house and maybe a car early on. But everything else, you should try to delay your gratification long enough to allow you to save up for it. You'll probably enjoy it more when you get it that way anyway. My suggestion is to start with a minimum savings goal of 10% of your income. And I'd recommend that it go directly into your savings or investing accounts. Do a direct deposit. If you don't see the money, you won't be tempted to spend it. Increase that number as soon and as much as you can. If you can get up to 40 to 50% savings rate, you will achieve financial independence very quickly. Then you'll have plenty of money to buy all the things that you want. Finally, today I want to talk about personal financial statements. What are they and why should I have one? If you are an investor, you'll know about the quarterly and annual financial reports that public companies are required to report to their stock investors. It's a snapshot of how strong the company is and what they expect to do in the future. It's the fodder for large swings in the value of a company's stock as investors decide if they should buy or sell. Well, a personal financial statement is similar, but for your family business, which is your personal finance. It's how you calculate your net worth in any given moment in time. Net worth equals assets minus liabilities. So what's an asset and what's a liability? Think of it like this. An asset is anything that you own, and a liability is anything that you owe. If you have something that you could sell and get money for it, it's an asset. If it puts money or could put money into your pocket, it's an asset. Or just the cash money in your pocket or bank account is also an asset. So cash, savings account, CDs, investments like stocks and bonds, real estate, your cars, your house. Now, if you owe money on any of those things, that counts against you. So any debt, your mortgage, your student loans, your car loans, your credit card debt, those are liabilities. Your net worth is simply the difference between those two things, your assets and your liabilities. Obviously, the higher the number your net worth, the wealthier that you are. As a young doctor loaded with student loan debt, your net worth may actually be negative. You're able to compensate for that with a sudden increase in income as you start your attending job, but not for very long if you want to get to true wealth. Paying down those liabilities increases your net worth. Accumulating assets like investments increases your net worth. It's useful to keep track of the changes in your net worth over time. Maybe check it once a year and see if you're on track. It should be increasing in most years. Sometimes it drops if you have a bad year in the stock market, but if you leave it alone, it should recover, assuming that you've invested wisely. Banks and lending institutions also ask you for a personal financial statement when they're considering whether they should give you a loan. So it's good to keep it up to date. You can create a spreadsheet on Excel that you can update every year, or there are pre-made data sheets available on the internet where you just plug in your numbers. Okay, so here's your homework from this lesson. Number 1, start your emergency fund. Figure out how much money you will need to get to 3 to 6 months of expenses and begin saving for it today. Number 2, look at your expenses over the last 3 months, either on your credit card or debit card statements, and figure out what you're spending your money on. Or if you don't have any of those records, start recording it today, even if it's on your own Excel spreadsheet. Do you find any surprises? Do you value what you're spending your money on? If not, make some changes. It doesn't have to be all at once, but make some changes. Put the money you save in your emergency fund or investment account. Make some plans on how you want to spend your money moving forward, and if there's anything that you need to buy in the next few years that you can start saving for. Consider signing up for a budgeting app like Monarch Money to help you stay on track. Number 3, create a goal of how much of your income you want to save and then pay yourself first. Make it an automatic withdrawal right to your savings or investment account so you aren't even tempted to spend that money. Most of us adapt our behaviors based on how much is sitting there in our checking account waiting to be spent. Finally, create your own personal financial statement and figure out what your net worth is. Start tracking that over time and watch yourself move along the path to true wealth. Okay, that's the end of another lecture. Once again, I hope that you found this content useful, and I encourage you to follow through on the suggested homework assignments. And if you like what you're seeing so far with this lecture series, please hit the subscribe and like buttons below, as well as the notification buttons to be alerted when I post new videos. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.